And now we're talking to Ian McLagan of Small Faces and Bump Band fame. Why don't you tell me a bit of the story behind the Bump Band?
Well, the first Bump Band came into being when I was making my second album, my second solo album in LA, and Gary Panter was working on the cover, was talking about the cover, and I was explaining to him one day at the studio how my wife had woken up in the middle of the night to hear me shouting or singing at the top of my voice the chorus of So Lucky, a song I was having trouble with in the studio, and apparently I was sleep singing. I have no memory of it, but I told him about that. He said it was like a bump in the night, and I said, well, you know, that's funny, that expression comes from an old Cornish prayer, from ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, may the good Lord preserve us. So I thought, well, there's the title of the album, Bump in the Night. Well, the band's the Bump Band then. And Bonnie Raitt came in the studio within the next week, and she liked the band. She was checking the studio out, so we cut her album, and it was Bonnie Raitt and the Bump Band, and then we toured with her for 4 years under that name. So I just kept it. I mean, I've had it now since 1980. That's 28 years.
You played with her on the Green Light record, right?
That was the album we made, yeah, with the Bump Band, yeah.
So what was it like working with Bonnie?
Fabulous. I love Bonnie. She's an absolute dear friend, and of course she's a great talent. She's just a wonderful person. She's beautiful to work with. I mean, I actually had to leave because I found I was just in her band, you know, and I'd had my band, and then suddenly for 4 years, and it was great, but I needed to get off and do my own stuff. No, she's wonderful.
I know you played with two of rock's great vocalists, Steve Marriott and Rod Stewart. Were you a little apprehensive about? I mean, I think you're a good singer, but were you apprehensive about stepping up to the mic yourself?
Oh no, you know that no one compares me with them. You know, I mean, I've worked with Mick Jagger too. That's three of the greatest singers around. You know. No, I mean, I never think of myself as a singer. I actually love it more and more, and I really do enjoy singing now. And I'm working. I mean, I can get more adventurous with my voice and with songs, with my material, with the tunes that I'm writing. I love it. That's the basic. That's the thing. I think if you love what you do, you either get better at it or it doesn't matter. I mean, I think I'm getting better at it.
How long have you lived in Austin, by the way?
14 years.
And what first brought you to Austin?
Well, I was leaving LA. Really, I'd had enough. Kim, my wife, had enough. She didn't like it there much. And we've been there 16 years. And then that last earthquake in '94 pretty much spat us out. And we were going wherever. We were just not going to stay in LA. And eventually we found, well, I just researched all the cities and found Austin was the only music town where, you know, there was no earthquakes or really bad weather. And I'm sick of English weather. I didn't want to go to Chicago for the cold or Boston. You know, Boston's obvious choice, it seems, you know.
Didn't Ronnie Lane live in Texas for a while?
He was living here. He was living in Houston, and I'd stayed with him in Houston, and he stayed with me in LA, and then he moved here, and he was, I told him that I was going to move here on March 31st, '94, because I was playing with Rod Stewart at the Irwin Center, and he came to the gig, and it was the day before his birthday, April the 1st, and I told him, I said, hey, we're moving to Austin. So he said, oh, which wasn't the reaction I was hoping for. And he'd already decided to move, you see. So he didn't want to break it to me right then. And the next day I took him out for lunch on his birthday, and we signed papers in our house just afterwards. And a month and a half later, he left for Trinidad, Colorado.
You kept in touch with Rod Stewart after the Faces broke up. What about Steve Marriott?
Steve died in 97, I think it was. I'm not sure now. Yes, it must be 90. No, wait. I think Ronnie died in 97. I think he died in 90. I hadn't been in touch with Steve. I mean, we reformed the Small Faces in 1976, and it wasn't fun, which is the only reason to get back together, really. I mean, it wasn't much fun. Ronnie Lane quit the first night, and Steve was as annoying as he ever was. Great singer, but really quite annoying. So it wasn't what it should have been, and I was glad to get. I stopped answering the phone eventually, and we moved to the States. I never saw him again. Yeah.
What kind of music have you been listening to lately? Do you keep in touch with any newer artists?
I do. You know, I was in Nashville recently recording, and somebody turned me on to Mike Farris, who played here at Antone's a couple of nights ago. Played on Thursday, and I was very knocked out by him. He reminded me of Steve. He had the energy, and he's short and really wiry, and just fantastic voice. And he came in to say hello. He caught a bit of my show the other night. He's a great talent. I think, you know, I do, but you know, I'm not knocked out by a lot of the young performers, because I still listen to Muddy Waters, Jimmy Reed. Yeah, that's what I listen to. You know what I mean? But you know, every now and again, you know, I like Spoon. Some of the Spoon stuff is really, really great. I like his voice. Well, I mean, I like some of the songs really good. You know, I'm not one to judge. You know, I'm too old to be listening to that crap. You know, I listen to the same old stuff that got me going.
You know, I noticed, you know, also over your career, you've played both during the Faces and afterwards, many different styles of music. Even in the Faces, you went from being a standard R&B group to playing almost proto-heavy metal to playing...
No, I wouldn't say it was heavy metal. I think
Song of the Baker? Not
well,
really
it's just,
metal.
I call it rock and roll. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Small Faces we were a mod outfit. We were an R&B group, really, when I first joined them. And then singles didn't hit, or whatever, second single didn't hit, so we recorded Sha-La-La Lee, which is not a great song, but it got us, you know, going, and then bit by bit we could do more of the stuff we really wanted to do, you know. That was the way it was. But we really were an R&B and blues band, you know. Marriott loved all the same records I did, you know.
What records were you listening to?
Muddy Waters, Jimmy Reed, you know. He had a very wide taste, you know, what you might call Catholic taste. He enjoyed, like, Cannibal Adderley, and I love Thelonious Monk, and he turned me on to all kinds of people. He actually turned me on to Hank Williams. I'd heard Bumbucket's Got a Hold in it, that was it. He wasn't big in England, you know. But we both loved Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Howlin' Wolf. You know, I got to play with Wolf, Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williams.
What was it like playing with Howlin' Wolf? Because I was in Mississippi, there was a tribute to him.
He was wonderful. And him and Hubert Sumlin were fantastic. Hubert told me in this very building, first time I met him since those days, it was like 1964, and 2 or 3 years ago he was playing here, and I came and met him, and he said, you know, the Wolf loved you. He wanted to take you back to America, which was like 40-odd years, you know.
Wow.
Since.
You know, British people have always had an affinity for R&B, classic blues, even today with the Northern Soul scene. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it was from another world, but also when you heard those tracks, I heard Hoochie Coochie Man on the radio one night, and just that blew me away. I didn't know who Muddy Waters was until that moment, and I went to my record store. Anyway, it's a long story, but that album, Muddy Waters Live at Newport, was what glued the Faces together when we first got together. Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood, and I, and Steve Marriott, but we had all listened to that album when it came out, when we had it. And so when we didn't have any songs, when the Faces got together, we used to do Mojo Working, Tiger in Your Tank, Hoochie Coochie Man, Got My Brand on You. There was another one, like 5 songs from that live album. And I mean, that was our glue, you know. I forget what your question was then.
Oh no, that was great.
I know why English people and people in Europe, why they got onto it, was because you couldn't go into a record store and sift through many Muddy Waters albums or Jimmy Reed or Howlin' Wolf records. There were none. You heard one track and you went, oh, that's the shit. So now you had to research it. You had to buy the record, it had to be shipped from